Yay! We're here. Welcome to American Sex Live. Wow, it's like what is happening? Every Wednesday night, you see us here at 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 Eastern. You know, you can figure out your own time zone. And each week we talk about stuff. So we're sexuality educators. I'm Sunny Megatron. This is
not
Ken Melvoinberg. We're sexuality educators, pleasure advocates, and kinky perverts too.
And we're married.
We're married, yeah.
We're married.
We're also the hosts of the American Sex Podcast that normally you hear every Monday on all the, anywhere you get podcasts like Spotify and iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts and blah, 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 blah. We were on hiatus for like a month, but we're back. If you haven't listened to this Monday's episode, it is with Madison Young. Go ahead and take a listen. But this, our Wednesday night live stream show, is completely different content than what you hear on the Monday podcast, which is awesome. Before we get into what we're talking about today, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping, which we lovingly here call ball washing. First, you may be watching this on Periscope. If
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I was gonna say if Twitter's even up. I don't know if it's up yet. So maybe you're watching this on Twitter, or maybe Twitter's just fucked. I don't know. But you might
fuck Twitter.
Yes, you might be watching this on YouTube Live. You might be watching this on Facebook, and that's fine and dandy. That's great. Welcome. Thank you. Those are simulcasts, however. So even though you can watch us, what you can't do is interact with us. You can't, we can't see your chat. You can't pop on camera. We can't see what you're commenting, that sort of thing. So if you want to be part of the show and interact, hop on over to Get Vocal. You can get there two ways. Wherever you're watching, you'll probably see a link to our Get Vocal stream. Just click on that and I'll take you over to Get Vocal platform. If that isn't showing up for some reason, go to bit.ly, bit.ly/Sunny Get Vocal, SUNNY GETVOKL. And lastly, if you're watching and you want to share with your friends, in the chat over here on Get Vocal is a link where you can just tweet it or Facebook it and drop it and invite your friends here. All right. What else am I forgetting?
Have you washed all the balls?
I have not. This is my ball washing right here. I'm trying to I gotta get the left side, I gotta get the right side, I gotta scrub it up. We're part of a Wednesday night lineup that's all about sex and relationships called the Connection Zone. So if this is your first time tuning in or you only tune into our show, tune in a couple hours earlier. There's all sorts of different shows you can catch, as well as different themes on different nights of the week. So tomorrow is True Crime Thursday. Friday is Fandom Friday. Tuesday is Tasty Tuesday, but I saw something else was happening on Tuesday too. I'm not sure.
Catch John Borowski's show on Thursday, right?
Yeah. What else?
If you like horror, he's a great horror director, screenwriter, producer, and makes some of the best documentaries on horror stuff, specifically about true crime serial killers. So if you like true crime, you like serial killers, check out John. He did some of the most amazing stuff on H.H. Holmes, Carl Panzram, and Albert Fish.
Yep. If you miss any of our past shows, if you're on Get Vocal, you can just hit the recorded tab on our main page and view our entire archive. And what else? Oh, if you like what we do, we've got a Patreon page, which is Patreon, patreon.com/American Sex. Or if you're here on the Get Vocal chat, you can hit that little blue diamond and ta-da, you can give us V coins. And maybe Waffles will do a trick. Oh, we can't see Waffles on the camera. Well, now we can.
Say hi, Waffles.
Oh, Waffles. Oh, you poor dog. Okay, so I see Ruben and Sherry are here. Hi.
Hey, guys.
I am going to leave the...
Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you! I'm going to leave the little chat screens open. So, because this is sort of more, I think, going to be an interactive conversation. I don't really know where we're going to go tonight. I'm just going to put that out here. Our topic is, what is kink? And that sounds like a really simple question, but I was presented with it over the last couple of days, like, I don't know, earlier this week, and I nearly had an existential crisis over the question, what is kink? So I'm going to tell you how this came about. So I'm on a message board for neurodiverse folks. And one of the questions came up, hey, Ruben and Cherry, one of the questions came up was, it's hard to date. Like was a board specifically for condition learning disability, whatever, called nonverbal learning disability, which basically, and that's me, basically one of the symptoms is it's hard for you to read nonverbal language. So, what do they say? Like 65% of language is like with nonverbal cues or something. So people who have nonverbal learning disorder can't read the nonverbal and are hyperverbal. So there was a question that was posed that was, this makes dating really hard. Like when you can't pick up the innuendos and the flirting, and you need people to be really blunt. Like a lot of people
she is terrible at flirting. Yeah. She never got it, even when we were dating.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of folks who are on the autistic spectrum that have the same issues. And we need people to just be like, spell it out, use your words, like be very specific. Or like for me, it's like,
come on. Huh?
Yeah, I don't get the wink, wink, wink. I have no idea what's happening.
Hey,
I don't know. Use your words. So that was a question that was posed in this group I was in, is like, dating is really hard as somebody who can't read nonverbal cues. And, what do y'all do? So my answer to that was, for me, when I found the kink community, it was mind-blowing. Because in kink communities, it's very customary. If you're interested in someone, you're like, hi, I am interested in you. This is exactly, I'm looking for a play partner. This is exactly what I want. This is what I'm looking for in a partner. Are you interested? Would you like to negotiate? And it's customary to have those really in-depth conversations with someone who's a virtual stranger. So I was like, this is great. I don't have to rely on flirting anymore. And I mean, even when hey, Nisha. Yes, that was important when it came to partners that were potentially sexual partners, but it also was important when I was meeting friends. Like I always tell people, if you're going to get involved in any sort of sexual sub-community, yes, you may be getting involved to find partners and people to have sex with or to play with. However, it is just as important that you find people who are friends in that community. Mm-hmm. So you have like-minded people that you can, get advice from and bounce things off of. So that culture in the kink community of verbally obtaining consent, verbally explaining what you want, verbally like being okay to be like, you know what, I feel really awkward right now and I have no idea what's going on. Can you tell me? That's welcome in kink communities. People communicate that way. So it was really great for friends as well. So yeah, that's the 2 cents that I gave, that I had a lot of luck when I found kink communities, not only for finding partners and dating, but for just finding friends that were on that same wavelength where they could be very verbal with me.
And this is kind of a sidetrack from what we're talking about today, but it's interesting when you're involved in any sexual sub-community, whether it's BDSM or one of the subsects of BDSM, like the rope community, the leather community, or maybe you're a sex worker and you're in adult films, your sexuality doesn't necessarily define you, nor does a terrible event in your sexuality necessarily define you. And a lot of people that are vanilla are surprised that we have friends that are in porn that we just are friends with, and they're not necessarily like sexual partners. And there's other people we have that are sexual partners, but it's really about chemistry, and common kinks, communication.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot more to it, but I think that's one thing somebody really has to realize, is just because somebody is kinky and has kinks doesn't mean they're your potential partner.
Right. Like just because your friend's a swinger doesn't mean them and their spouse are trying to fuck you all the time.
And just because you're a porn star doesn't mean you're trying to get laid all the time. Like we know porn stars that are monogamous. And
that are actually very vanilla in their personal lives.
And they're the least kinky people I know. They just happen to fuck really good for a living.
Exactly. So that was sort of how this question came about. I got a private message from somebody, And, I was like, oh, kink community is where I found my people. And they asked me, what is kink? And I read that question. And, this is my job. I talk about what is kink all the time. But for like that question at that time and that medium just like hit me different. And I was like, what is kink? And I had this like existential crisis. And I think part of it was because when Ken and I are teaching, coaching, whatever, people have found us because they are already somewhat interested in learning more about their sexuality. They might know a little bit about sex positivity. They maybe might not know about kink or BDSM, but they know enough to know it's out there and they want to know more. So it's very rare. And I posed a question like that from somebody who, and I don't know this person. I don't know that they know nothing, but I'm just assuming, random stranger off the internet knows nothing. And just having that question posed to me in that way was like, whoa, how do I explain what kink is to somebody who has no inkling about the kink community? And two, I started really drilling down on the what is kink question for myself, who's very kinky, who knows all the things, who's an educator of like, it was like one of those like conversations you have when you get really high. I don't get high anymore, but if I did, it would be like I smoked a doob and I was like, what is kink? Like I had a moment like that. So that's what we're talking about
Conversely,
today.
I'm high right now.
Okay. See? And you're like, found your very best friends. Trish said, found my very best friends in the kink community and they became our family, which is freaking amazing.
It is.
While I kind of, pontificate and think out loud, and this is going to be
good word, pontificate.
Is that like did you just neg me?
No, I didn't neg you. No. That was a compliment.
Okay, I know that word.
I'm not questioning your intellect. Good word.
Thank you.
Legit compliment, nonverbal learning disorder. Okay. Learn the difference.
See, I don't know the nonverbalness behind that.
Good word.
Right there. While I pontificate,
I'm gonna masticate while you pontificate.
I would love for you to type in the comments or even pop on screen. Tell me what kink means to you, because it is super fucking subjective. It means something different to everybody. And I think this is partially why my brain exploded. I also am realizing that right now, at this point in history, with coronavirus happening, us all collectively having major mental breakdowns right now, we're redefining everything in our lives. We're redefining intimacy. We're redefining our sexuality. That's all happening right now. And I think we're really, in some way, maybe not redefining, maybe it's really zeroing in on what kink means to us, because
fine-tuning.
Fine-tuning. That's a good word.
Thank you. That's better. See, good word.
Because of everything that's going on. And also, before COVID hit, I'm a marketer first and foremost. So I look at,
And a pontificator.
Shut up. Shut up. Yeah, I work for the company that's a ho green giant and Pillsbury Doughboy and big advertising company. So agency. So I started thinking about Gen Z. So the people who are high school and college. How old is it, Gen Z? No more than like mid-20s now. Pretty much, maybe.
Is our daughter on the lowest end of?
I can't remember, but Gen Z, the young people right now. From a marketing standpoint,
Zoomers.
From a marketing standpoint, what has been, I guess, coming out about that generation as a whole, and applying that to their sexuality. Gen Z is very much more emotionally connected to others. They're very more emotionally conscientious. They are less sexually promiscuous. They're more cautious when sexually with people. They like to dive into each other more from a mental standpoint. And also now this is how we're all moving with coronavirus, because like we can't physically see people. We're doing stuff on Skype and Zoom, and we have to like sexually get into people's heads, and we're having
Discord.
phone sex, and we're not able to just physically be with someone and like mindlessly mash our genitals together. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's amazing. But our situations are forcing us to look at intimacy differently right now. So that's a lot of what's floating in my head now. So usually when I'm talking, when I'm answering the question, what is kink, to somebody who has a little bit of, sex positive culture know-how, and Discord, yes, I will usually start with, let's break down, what does kink mean? What does a fetish mean? And what does BDSM mean? Because sometimes you'll hear them. What's happening? Oh, sometimes, a lot of times people will use them interchangeably. They'll be like, oh, if you're a kinkster, you're into hardcore BDSM, or if you're, so I usually start there. So BDSM, I'm just going to do a quick: bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, and sadomasochism. So it's basically an acronym that covers the entire world of kinky, anything you could possibly do, whether it's tying somebody up or smacking them on the ass or doing erotic humiliation, or pain, all of those things fall under the acronym of BDSM. When you look at what kinks or fetishes are, a fetish, and I pulled up the dictionary definition.
Real quick before she does that, I wanted to mention one thing. I'm an old human, and one of the things about being an old human is that I have found that like I was kinky from the time I could remember, from the time I was very young. Kinks change, modify, and grow over time. And in my experience, at least, from having been kinky for close to 32 years now, I think, that like they even come full circle in some instances. So don't let any one kink or fetish or community define you or what you do. Just go with what you feel and what makes you live your best life.
Okay. So I told you what BDSM is. The dictionary definition of a fetish, Google tells me it's a form of sexual desire in which gratification is linked to an abnormal degree to a particular object, item of clothing, part of the body, etc. That's usually not the definition I use because I don't like the word abnormal. It has bad connotations. I usually say that it is something that turns you on sexually that isn't normally a sexual thing. It is often an object, something tangible. And by some definitions, people who have a fetish can't actually get off unless they have that thing. So let's say your fetish is latex, like you love the feel of latex and rubber. You might not even be able to, get a boner or get off or whatever, get sexually turned on unless you're like feeling that latex between your fingers. So that's what a fetish is. A kink, Google tells me, is involving or given to unusual sexual behavior. And I don't like that definition. It's similar, but the definition that I always use in my teaching is something that turns you on sexually that falls outside of the sexual norm. And this is where I kind of had kink is freedom. Finding kink was like a weight lifted or a door opened. I found myself, accepted myself. That's amazing. Dustin says, I feel like kink has to go one of two ways. Either the traditional against the norm sort of definition that is a minority, or we can redefine kink to a sort of branding of sex positivity / openness to experiences. I love that.
That's
by the way. Yes, Dustin. I need to remember this. It does have a really subjective definition. So the definition that I use that's based off of the dictionary definition is something that turns you on sexually that falls outside of the sexual norm, which poses a number of problems. We get into the subjectivity. What is the sexual norm? Okay. If you live in some, let's say you're, Amish, you're right, or some place that's very conservative. To you, a blowjob might be like,
I think it's a bad example because of Rumspringa.
Okay, whatever. I don't know. But if you're in a conservative, whatever social group you're
Christian Reformed.
Or cultural group you're in, yeah, maybe blowjobs are like, no way. And if you do them, you're being kinky.
Yes.
Where to somebody else, they're like, it's just no big deal. Like, to me, maybe kinky is dripping hot wax on my body. And to somebody else, they might say, like, that's kind of normal to me. That's not kinky. So first we have a problem because we have no concrete definition of what the sexual norm is. If you look at what America, media, etc., calls a sexual norm, we have two very conflicting, simultaneous representations of that. On one respect, it's like lights out, missionary position, don't make too much noise. Maybe you fake your orgasm just to, think of England, whatever. But then you look at, people like us, or people who read the 50 Shades of Grey books, or, people who tend to be a little bit, people who are more progressive sexually. Their definition, I forgot, totally, my brain just went. It's totally different. You made a clown and I don't know what happened. So anyway, so that's the first problem. The second problem with that definition, that it wasn't until recently got me, is something that turns you on sexually. We haven't really defined what that means. Like, we assume something that turns you on sexually means you get a hard on, you get wet, whatever it is. You feel the tingly in your pants, your nipples get hard, whatever. But is that really the definition? If you think of people who engage in BDSM and different sorts of, power exchange role plays, what turns them on sexually might be more up here. It might be like the power of what's going on, as opposed to like you just got a boner. So this is part of the reason I think why that question like blew my mind, because I'm like, this is not easy to explain because it's so subjective. Let me just see if there's additional comments. So I don't know. What are your thoughts so far? Are you with me?
I don't know if I agree with that.
Really?
Yeah, because like I like there are certain acts that I have that are kinks that definitely increase physical arousal.
Oh, I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying that doesn't happen for everybody.
So you're saying people that don't get physical arousal at all, or people just they're confusing physical arousal for mental arousal? I don't understand.
No, I'm saying like for instance, I had that dream last night. If you haven't heard Twitter, I had a dream last night. It was so funny that I topped Joey from Friends. Okay, first of all,
good money to see that.
I don't watch Friends. I don't like Friends. I don't know, but it was like so hot, and I was like beating, like he didn't know about BDSM, so I was like his first experience. And of course, in the dream, I was like, I had this like super hot latex outfit and shit, and I want to say
Did you have latex in your dream?
I think I also had the body of my 23-year-old self in the dream. I was like super hot and stuff. And I was spanking him and beating him and caning him and like showing him all the things because it was new. And like every time I beat him, he was like so excited. Like, this is amazing. I never knew about this. But at the same time, he was kind of scared, but in that good, sexy kind of scared, not like a legit, I want to stop scared. And then I was like putting duct tape on him and ripping his body hair out. And I think I pegged him, although I don't remember that part in the dream. But my point is, OMG, my point is, I woke up so happy and feeling completely sexually satisfied. However, no genitals and no actual fucking happened in that dream. Like, I got off, maybe not in a I'm gonna have an orgasm way, but in a more up here sexual way, just from topping Joey in my dream. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So that's what I mean.
That is totally legit. I was confused what you meant initially.
Right. So like when we say a sexual turn on, I think most people assume that means like genitals have to get engorged, something has to ejaculate, like that sort of thing. But what we forget is a sexual turn on can happen all up here. Like there are people who are asexual who, and there's, asexuality is a spectrum. And yes, there are asexual people that still have genital involved sex. But like there are, people who are asexual who are kinky that totally get off on it, but they don't necessarily get off on like, oh, genitals were being mashed together. They're getting off on another, like a psychosexual component of the scene, if that makes sense.
It does. What it just made me think of is it was very sexually arousing, but not, like you're saying, not in a physical way. Watching like the clown orgy that we filmed for the show, because you and I were either in the show or we were producing it, but we couldn't get involved with the orgy, and that was frustrating and amazing and beautiful because it was a lot of our good friends.
Right.
And that was a very good, positive, energetic experience.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like just being able to watch a sexy thing and we were part of it, but like not involved with it.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of where I sort of had my like mental, like, holy shit, what the fuck is kink? So, when it comes to giving a simple answer, and my response was like, this is not a simple answer. I'm going to do a live stream about it. You can watch it. And I don't know, maybe this is going to be more confusing if you're here watching it. I really like Midori's definition of kink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Her definition of kink is childlike play with adult sexual privilege and really cool toys. And that is, I can't think of a better definition of kink. And, the more I really reflect, pontificate on, on what kink is and why do we like it, the more I'm like, the definitions that we use or what people think kink is, I think is a very narrow definition. I mean, when you hear someone say, I'm kinky, first of all, even in a sexual way, that can mean lots of different things. It can mean I have vanilla sex, but every once in a while I put on some lingerie and, do a little spanky. I do it on my anniversary, or on a birthday. I'm kinky. And kinky to another person could mean like I do, rope suspension and, put jumper cables on my nipples and, set my feet on fire. You're like, that's mine.
She's literally listing things we've done to people together. Oh, thank you, Adam.
So yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Literally done that to somebody. Hang them upside down, suspend them, and light their feet on fire.
Yeah, it's
that was fun.
It's pretty fun.
That was fun.
So,
and I still those.
That really. I mean, the definition of kinky is like it's really subjective, and it does sound great, and it's really up to you. So now I'm going to tie that into community because, this whole thing came up with like when I found the kink community, I found my people for a lot of different reasons. They that say things, I don't know the exact they, but they say that the vanilla community, and I don't want to make like vanilla is bad and kinky is good. That's not sex positive. You know what's sex positive? You're into whatever the fuck you're into. And if you're having a good time, good for you. Like one's not better than the other. But a lot of times you'll hear people say that, people who are vanilla or maybe not involved in these sex positive communities can still take certain things from those communities that will benefit them. Like just like monogamous people can take some practices that are commonplace in the polyamorous communities, apply those things to their own relationship while still remaining very monogamous, and it will improve their communication. It will improve the relationship. So, some of the things I see in sex positive communities, it could be kink, it could be non-monogamous, the greater sex positive communities is communication is normalized between partners. You know, as I said, that's why I found my people, because I could say to somebody like, hi, Ken, you're hot. You know, he's like, nice boobs is the first thing he said to me.
Very clever man.
Yeah, I want to go back and see if I could pull it up and see what I said back. I can't remember. But
I'm a terrible flirter, you guys. But like she appreciated my directness, though, I think.
Well, here's the thing I liked. So when I dated before, when I found myself single midlife, and I was on OkCupid. I think I did Plenty of Fish a couple times. That was a disaster. It was the early 2000s, different world.
In the before times.
Way before. And dating was just horrible. It was confusing. I couldn't flirt. I was like, what do they mean? They sent me this email. I don't know what it means. Like there could be 8 million tones of voices in this, and I don't know what to say back. It was really super stressful. When I met Ken on FetLife, FetLife.com, FetLife.com, it's a kinky social networking site. The profiles are like, hi, I'm Ken, you know, this is my age, my gender, my role in kink, like I'm a dominant. And then it was like, here are all the things I'm into sexually. Here are all the things I'm looking for. Here are all the things I'm not looking for. You were pretty much an open book. Like even looking at your profile, looking at a profile on a kinky website is very different, because it's like the facade is gone. I mean, not always. There's always assholes everywhere. That's not what I mean. But for a lot of people, they're more forthcoming, and you see their real, genuine, authentic selves right away. And then when we started talking, it was like, you know, I could say, well, what kind of relationship are you looking for? Like in vanilla dating, even that sometimes is like, whoa.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, not to, but to some people.
Just right away, I think like polyamorous, because I wanted, like, it's not like I wasn't looking for a relationship, just so few people that I'd like.
I think in the vanilla thing, it's more like, are you looking for a relationship versus not? Like, people don't want to be like, I don't want to say I'm just looking for fun, because they're going to think I'm a player, and so then you get like, especially straight guys who lead the women they're dating along, making them think that they're interested in a relationship because they assume that the women want a relationship. And even if the women don't want a relationship, they think they're going to think I'm a slut if I say I'm just in this for the fun and I'm not, you know, things have changed. Granted, you know, as time goes on, we drop those. But back when I was dating, that was very much a thing. And in some circles, it still is very much a thing. Like we are in progressive circles with a lot of younger people, like we're the older people in our group, who are more liberal and progressive politically, relationship-wise, that sort of thing. That's not
across the board, actually open to most ideas.
But
I think
that's not your average America.
No,
that is not your average America. You know, so right there, if if I found myself, I lived in Northwest Indiana for a minute. If I was still in Northwest Indiana right now, I would not be finding a group of people like you. They were all very much like, I need to, you know, we're all straight here. We're all heterosexual. And I need to, as the man, I need to string the woman along and make her think maybe I want to, get married. But really, I just want to fuck her. But I'm going to lie to her. Like, that was normal.
You almost sounded like Cher right there. That was awesome.
If I could turn back. No,
it's not
okay. So anyway, then when I started talking to you, so it was very customary to be like, what are you looking for? And if like just sex was the answer, it is okay to say that. And like, nobody's judging you. And you can say exactly what you want in these communities and nobody's going to judge you for it. I mean, depending on what you say, most things. If it's really, if it's something illegal and bad, maybe, but no one's going to judge you for it. If they're not like, people take no's very well in kink. If you're like, no,
that's a little bit different. Okay.
I'm sorry, that's not for me. Okay, cool. It's great talking to you. I hope you find what you're looking for. I have a few friends, or do you want to? Cool. I could never have that happen. I wouldn't say never, but not likely have that happen in a vanilla dating scenario.
Well, even just to the point where you're having open communication in a vanilla dating scenario.
Right. So it's like, these are the things that I find in kinky communities that anyone can benefit from. Normalizing direct conversation, normalizing receiving whatever feedback you have without judgment. So if it's a no, not to be pissed off or to keep pushing or whatever, so that's what I found in kinky communities. And like, for me, when I say kinky community, I mean, I don't know, to me, kink is sort of like, and maybe it's kind of like what Justin said, I'm gonna go back. It's sort of like queer in a way. I'm not going to say it's the same definition, but it's like in the same family of words, kind of. Meaning,
I would agree with that.
It's not the norm when it comes to sexuality. It's something that's, outside of that norm or that expectation, no matter what it is. It may be non-monogamous. It may be you're into BDSM. It may be you're a swinger or you're a nudist or you know what I mean? That's kind of how I use kink, as sort of a generic catch-all of like, I am different sexually, or I am involved in alternative sexuality in some way, shape, or form.
You know what I was just thinking of? There's also a subsect of subsect of vanilla people that would never identify as kink, but they're actually kinky. And our best example of this is found in the cuckolding community, because it was like 70% of all sales of chastity devices are by vanilla couples that are not in the lifestyle at all, but just like the man has cheated on the woman, and so she's locking his penis in a cage just because.
Yeah.
And it's like they would never identify as kinky, but that's definitely weird. I mean, I don't know if
I call that. See that?
That is definitely kinky.
It is okay.
You're putting somebody's genitals in a cage.
The action is kinky. The reason behind it is not. The action is.
I would beg to differ. I would say half of it is not. I would say whoever is consenting to have a dick cage on. There is. But
are they consenting under, like, let's say you're okay. Here's a scenario: husband, wife, traditional suburban hetero, 2 kids, the whole thing. Husband's cheating with the secretary, right? Wife finds out. Wife says, "I'm gonna divorce your ass and take everything, or I'm gonna, I don't know, do something bad to you, whatever. Take your kids away from you, unless you wear this cock cage." Is that consent? I mean, that's under duress. You know what I mean? And like, even though the act of putting the chastity device on somebody's penis, that is a kinky act. It is not being done for a kinky reason. It's being done for a controlling, toxic, your asses need to communicate better reason.
I wouldn't say 100% of all those cases are blackmail. I would say some of them are blackmail.
Some of them kind of enjoy it.
But some of them are like, don't put me in a cock cage, please. Please don't do that, mistress. Oh.
But then, okay, so that leads me to, and real quick, Justin's definition was sex positivity / openness to experience as his definition of kink. And yeah, that's kind of along the lines where I am. So yeah, are they consenting is the key, Ruben and Sherry said. And yes, even though the husband might be consenting, it's under duress. But you're right. There may be like this secret desire to be like, this is what I wanted all along. But then this is the difference. Because those people were not open to being their authentic sexual selves, because they were not open to hearing things from their partners that were very important to that partner that they might not want to hear or know how to deal with, they lived in secrecy. This husband went and fucked the secretary. Hurt his wife emotionally. Maybe all along, he kind of wants to be caught. Like there are those, I play with people who kind of want to be caught.
I worked at, that was the case.
Right. So they kind of want to be caught, and then when they're caught, the wife is like, I'm going to put this chastity device on you. And of course, the husband plays off like, no, don't do that. But secretly inside, he's getting a little chubby in that chastity device because it's kind of what he wanted all along, whether he realized it or not. Wouldn't it have been much easier if they just fucking said, we're kinky? Wife, these are the, I really want to be like, you know, locked up and controlled by you. You know, maybe I am interested in other people, whatever it is, and them negotiate it and actually play this out without having to go around the world and be unethical with each other just to end up with what they wanted. Because that could have blown up in their faces. Maybe the wife didn't get a chastity device and lock him up and maybe she's just divorced his ass and now, you know, the children are in therapy because their parents are divorced. Like, you just could have negotiated some BDSM stuff. And this is why we do what we do. It's like, you could avoid all that bullshit and become more self-aware with yourself, normalize communicating with your partner, whether you do kinky stuff, whether you go to BDSM parties or you're non-monogamous, that doesn't matter. And that goes back to, you know, what vanilla people can learn from sex positive communities.
Dustin has a really important point, and I want to comment on that. Dustin says it's not kink unless it's consent, which isn't true all the time. I actually think that it's not a binary where it's consent and not consent. There's a bunch of shades in between where there are some cases where there's implied consent.
Yeah, I mean, it's messy. It is
messy. I'm not saying it's clean, but,
yeah.
But I'm just saying, like in any other thing, there's not a complete, it's just consent or non-consent, because there are cases that one person might have thought it was consent to beginning and it ended up not being consent at all. And there's the other way around where there was not implied consent, but it was somehow wanted. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's dangerous to say everything is one. Well,
I'm thinking back to one of our conversations with Midori. I forget which podcast.
Yes,
it was. I think I want to say, don't quote me on it. And I think this was our first interview with her, which is like episode 40 something. It's engaged collaborative consent, and I really like this definition because now we're going back to neurodiversity again, with people say you have to have enthusiastic consent. Like, yeah, I want to do the thing. I want to. Sometimes, and I bring up neurodiversity because there are some people that may not express or may not emote as enthusiastically as the rest of us, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're not enthusiastic inside. And then with Midori, with her engaged collaborative consent, there are those times where you want to push your boundaries. Now, again, this is very nuanced, very gray area. I'm not saying boundaries.
This is what I was referring to you.
Right. Guys. I'm not saying boundaries are there to be pushed. They are not. But you have the choice to choose which boundaries that you have that you want to test. You know, and that could be for a number of reasons. Let's say I have a fear of public speaking. And when I'm doing scenes with my dom, it is off limits that they make me like perform in front of a group of people because it's too scary for me. But I might decide at some point, like, I really need to work on that. And even though it's one of my biggest fears and I'm terrified, I have decided, I have made the choice that is one of my boundaries I want to push and explore because I know it might be therapeutic for me or good for me, or the reason doesn't matter why. I want to do it. And in that case, you know, let's say you're my dom and I've told you about, like, I fear public speaking. I need you to push me and we negotiate, like, here are the ways that I will allow you to push my boundaries. Here are the ways that I won't allow you to push my boundaries. And we've had this negotiation, right? And then it comes time. We're at a public party and he makes me do something where I have to perform in front of people. And maybe I'm not very enthusiastic about that because I'm fucking terrified. Like, this is my biggest fear. but I've also consented to it. So that, and I know I'm not explaining Midori's concept perfectly. It's been a long time since I've heard that episode, but that's kind of what her engaged collaborative consent gets at. It's almost like RAC consent, and RAC stands for risk aware consensual kink, meaning usually when you're doing things like edge play, which is risky play, like maybe it's knife play. Oh, I was doing knife play with Joey in my dream. I just remembered. And I was like, I wonder if this is too much. We're getting to the edge play. I'm like, I wonder if he's going to freak out. I got to present this to him in a very like, whoa. No, that's Joey Lawrence. Joey Lawrence. Yeah. How you doing? That's Joey. That's how you give aftercare to Joey. You're like, you give him a blanket, you go, how you doing? So anyway, risk-aware consensual kink means that you're doing something that's a little iffy, a little risky, but you know, all partners involved have weighed the risks, have educated themselves as much as they can, have made sure they look out for if mistakes are going to happen, but they know that this shit can go sideways. But they've agreed and consented to do it anyway. I kind of feel like this enthusiastic consent in these situations is sort of like that. Like, yes, I've ultimately consented to it, but no, I'm not fucking enthusiastic. I'm nervous as shit. Maybe this was a bad idea, but I agreed to it, and I'm gonna go through. And I know that consent can be revoked at any time. I know that at any time I can be like, Ken, I'm serious. Red, I'm done. I can't do it. I was wrong. I thought I could do it, but I can't. And that can happen at any time. But I'm still not enthusiastic. Does that make sense? Let me talk. Are we all like, whoa? It's really fucking nuanced. Like, this stuff is really fucking nuanced.
Nisha.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. So what are you thinking? Is your brain like chewing on all the things?
Yeah. Like, how do you define consent when someone just asks you out of the blue and there's no, yeah, that's hard. I think the definition depends on how you kind of discovered it in a way. Like for me, I think I had my first kink fantasy when I was 3. So for me, I think everyone's a little kinky. It just depends on whether you want to communicate that and if you're going to get anything out of communicating that. That's the really important thing about kink is we do get a lot out of it, or you should at least, I think. But I've had this conversation with people, and I will say a defining characteristic that I look for when I'm forming friendships is how kinky are they? Because I know the friendship's going to be easier if they're kinky. Like an example I can give you is one of my friends was in a long string of abusive relationships, and with her current partner, which it's like a totally night and day relationship situation. They sat down even before they went on their first date, and she stated everything that she wanted to get out of her next relationship and everything that she could not tolerate. And he did the same thing. And I know it sounds cold and pragmatic and maybe not the sexiest thing, but their relationship is like incredible. And this man listens like none, she's really managed to hone in by having that one like kind of terrifying conversation with someone just in terms of dating. I don't think they can discuss sex. Being able to exercise that muscle is something that we do in the poly and the kink community. And I just think it makes you a better friend. It makes you a better partner. Yeah. So
yeah,
how to find it from the bottom up? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that, and again, this is a generalization. It doesn't mean every single person is, but in general, people in the kink community or whatever, again, I use kink very generically, sex positive communities, alternate sex communities, whatever you want to call it, tend to be a bit more emotionally illiterate, more self-aware because they've done that introspection, which you have to be self-aware to be able to relate to other people and have good interpersonal relationships. They, like you said, they exercise that muscle where they've normalized communicating down to the minutia, where maybe on the surface it seems unsexy, but it is so fucking helpful. And again, to your point, it's like if you're finding friends from those communities, your friendships are better, and you think now I'm going to get all dorky, like neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, like your neuron, what fires together, wires together. So the more you are used to thinking in a certain way, the more you are used to operating in a certain way, the more that becomes normal and you just do it automatically. So if you're engaging with people that behave this way on an emotional and an interpersonal level all the time, because it's like a given, that's just how you act and what you do, it is going to enhance relationships with whoever, like with your mother, with your neighbor, with the person you bumped into at the Walmart, like with every human you come in contact with.
But not with those people that don't wear masks. Fuck those motherfuckers.
I'm going to put them in chat.
They're not respecting my boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't consent to you not wearing a mask. Right?
Like
you know what I mean.
I'm in quarantine right now because one of the few people that tested positive. So I'm quarantining myself. And you know what I did? It's okay. I know. And I've been so careful too. So this just goes to show you guys, I've been really careful. But what I did is I texted, I'm sleeping with one person right now who has similar COVID values to me. That is literally how I selected this person. And I instantly texted him. I instantly looked at my calendar. I had made lists of anyone else I had contact with, and I contacted everyone. Now, that may not be someone's typical like strategy, but I think if I wasn't involved in the sex positive community, I probably wouldn't be handling COVID the way that I am, you know?
Oh, yeah, because that's like instant contact tracing.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's smart.
So I
contacted
everyone. Some of my friends thought I was nuts, but I'm like, hey, this is how many days you have to worry about. And but like kink touches every aspect, including Corona.
Maybe kink isn't even necessarily, and I mean, in the way we use it, because again, it's subjective, but isn't necessarily representative of actions. It's representative of a philosophy or a set of values.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned, is kink defined specifically by the action, or is it the intention behind it? And I think that's something to think about. A lot of people think it's all just action.
Yeah.
No, I think it could be a little bit of both.
It's my pen. I gotta write this down. Yeah. And I mean, and I guess, action versus intention. And I think when I answered that person's question, I was thinking it when I used the, kink community is where I found my people. And I was looking at it, now that you make that distinction, in more of the intention, in the values. Because to me, it doesn't matter if it's like the non-monogamous folks, the BDSM folks, or even there are plenty of people who consider themselves more vanilla that are absolutely welcome in these spaces. And it is more, and those people who are vanilla that are welcome in these spaces, that maybe they aren't the ones doing all of the kinky actions. Those folks, even though they don't do the stuff, they still share those values. And to me,
and there is a
go ahead.
There is a kink to kind of being surrounded also. I mean, that's a little kinky in and of itself, even though you might not participate, just being able to kind of watch it all play out. That's hot.
You're a voyeur and you're just, taking it in.
You know what I just realized? Most of our kink friends, if they are within like 1 to 2 degrees of separation from us sexually, we have probably gone through some sort of public health STI thing in the past. So it makes going through COVID a natural support system for a lot of us, because I know that like I've had friends with, chlamydia scares, HIV scares, like gonorrhea scares, just because it's not that we had it more frequently, but it's that we talk about it more openly and more frequently.
And we don't shame.
And we don't shame people.
Right.
That, if somebody gets HPV, like that's a kind of, you don't shame somebody for getting a cancer. You don't shame somebody for getting a disease. Nobody intentionally gets them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This has given me a lot. Like I'm thinking more and more, and really, kink is a philosophy. It's the intention
and a sexual preference.
Right. But at least the way I guess I was using it in that scenario. So, what I would advise to someone, I guess, who is new, who's like, I don't know anything about kink, but this philosophy or way of being seems to appeal to me. What the hell should I do?
Look at Dustin's comment. That's very interesting.
It may be that kink is evolving as it grows in acceptance. Ooh.
That's
what you said about Generation Z. Is that what you were talking about? The younger 20s? I don't hang out with many of them. And you got me thinking, I'm interested how they would define kink.
Yeah. And I think they would define kink more like this because, and it's like, I have one kid who is huh?
I said, why aren't I sleeping with any of them? That's my question. If
they don't have
that's like my wheelhouse.
They don't have sex a lot. I mean, I'm not saying they don't have sex a lot, but they are very choosy with their sexual partners. They are waiting longer to have sex for the first time. However, they are uber educated. They've been all over Scarletine. They've read all the books. They know, they're sex positive. They know all the things.
I wouldn't say they're more choosy. I think that they have less casual sex.
Yeah, they have less casual sex. Yeah. But also more mental intimacy. One thing I've noticed too is with a lot of the Gen Z people, at least that I have known, when it comes to a lot of them are queer, a huge percentage.
Huge percentage of queer.
Yeah.
LGBTQIA spectrum.
Huge percentage identify as queer. But the interesting thing is when I ask about what are your pronouns or, I get a lot of I don't care.
Yeah, whatever. I don't have labels.
They're just labels.
That's a millennial
thing.
My
pronouns don't matter. And I'm like, what? Pronouns are really important.
What, do I have to like Harry Potter too?
Yeah, and it's just
hating on millennials for their Harry Potterisms.
It's just a completely different
I'm a Slytherin.
Same, I'm a Slytherin.
It's
I know.
a completely different viewpoint. A completely they look through their sets of values with a different lens, and I've heard from so many people who are Gen Z that are I'm not going to get all up in the pronoun thing. I'm not my pronouns. It doesn't matter.
Trish has an interesting point. They're more accepting of differences.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Differences, fluidity, it's really interesting and try to read some of the marketing profiles on Gen Z and what they are, their values as a generational group. And it's really fascinating. And I think that more and more of the world, we're sort of moving towards those same values that Gen Z is bringing up. And I find it just fascinating.
I love it because I've always had those values. In the kink community, everyone always thinks I'm weird because I vet my partners for 5 years typically. I watch them kind of like a creep. I have a little mental list, and I tend to not sleep with someone until I've known them for that long.
That's smart.
And even it might still be casual sex. You can have casual sex with your friends, very rewarding casual sex with your friends. But I typically do that. So I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in that generation.
Yeah. And here's a comment here. So one, I think they have less casual friends based on some of the young people I know as their community stay online. Yes. And my 17-year-old son uses pronouns in a way that makes me think he has zero care about it. I'm trying to be careful and he's really annoyed that I'm asking. Yes. I'm making this big deal. I want to make sure I get your pronouns right. I want to be respectful. And they're like, who the fuck? Call me whatever you want. Why are you zeroing in on that thing? And I'm just like, aren't they important?
Do you remember the first time we took a porn star and run them through our BDSM practices? It was the same kind of reaction. Why are you going through all of this safety stuff? Just fuck me and stick me.
I don't think that was a Gen Z thing.
No, it's not a Gen Z thing. I'm just saying it was a similar reaction.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Why are you asking so much? Your caution is making me nervous. Is what they're relaying.
But Gen Z, from what I hear about Gen Z is let's talk about all the things. Let's really think about everything before we do it. So if that were a true Gen Z person, they probably would have really appreciated our intense negotiation.
Yeah.
And then probably would have been
here's a situation. Like I slept with, I think she was 23. This was prior to Corona. And she was trans. And so before we slept together, I obviously, started talking about how she wanted to be touched, what she wanted to call, certain body parts. And she laughs in my face and she goes, "It's a cock. Do you know what to do with a fucking cock?" And I'm like, "I do know what to do with the fucking cock." And I mean, it was so much fun. But that's not the answer I would get from someone my age who's, I'm 34.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, we're going to stop the broadcast, but we're going to keep talking. So if you're watching on one of the simulcast stations, whether it's Periscope, Facebook, or YouTube Live, if you want to keep the conversation going, hop on over to Get Vocal. The link should be in like whatever comments are with the broadcast you're watching right now. If it's not there, hop on over to bit.ly/Sunny Get Vocal, SUNNYGETVOKL. We are going to be back next week, probably with a guest, but we're not sure which one yet. So stay tuned.
We're waiting to hear
It'll
about
be
their
good.
schedules.
Yeah. And thank you. I really enjoyed this. And thank you, Adam. Adam just gave us
Oh my God, Adam, thank you so much.
I enjoyed this
Holy
because it was very much like let's just all deconstruct this together because I'm not really the teacher. I don't have the answer. Let's just all talk. And I'm still like going through mind blown moments. So thank you. I think we need to do more of this. This was fun.
You and I, the last time I saw you, we had a conversation similar, but there were cocktails involved. It was about whether kink is an identity, if it's something you're born with, or if it's developed over time. It was really interesting, and it touched on things that you touched on today. So, yeah.
I'm like thinking.
Yeah.
But get on over here, join the after party. We're going to keep talking, but our simulcast is going to go away. Mwah. Love you. See you next week. Sunny and Ken, AmericanSexPodcast.com. Go listen to this week's episode, and we're stopping the broadcast.